everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Digital Dish. Digital Dish is a global community that aims to help restaurant brands and leaders navigate the most complex business challenges in the quick service and fast casual industries. My name is Jacob Taché. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at Tillster, a global leader and provider of digital ordering and engagement solutions for restaurants. I am super excited to be here today to officially launch the first episode of Digital Dish. And I'm even more excited about who I'm launching it with. We have a very special guest today for the first episode and probably going to be a reoccurring guest, Chief Marketing Officer at Tillster, Hope Neiman. Hope, welcome. We did
Thank
it.
you.
It's officially a thing and it's happening.
I love it. Everybody seems to have so many podcasts and other sort of visual elements. But for us, I think it's really exciting that there's a lot that we can do that's really different. How we view the restaurant space digitally is very different. So I think we are delivering something that the market hasn't seen yet.
I would agree. And for those that, I know you're very well known in the industry, but for those that may not know you, would love to just get a quick little bio and background about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Hope Neiman, and as Jacob mentioned, I am the Chief Marketing Officer for Tillster. I've been here for a very long time, back when there really was no digital, and when people thought that we were kind of crazy for beginning to emerge in this space. But my own background is very heavily skewed towards the digital space, towards getting consumers to adopt new forms and ways of doing things, having been in some of the most well-known and iconic brands like Disney, but also some very well-known digital first brands like Shoe Dazzle, and bringing consumers to that. That's the kind of experience that I joined Tillster to help really create a new environment for restaurant and for us and our customers.
Love it. So we're just going to get right into it. It's already been a busy spring. I wanted to at least acknowledge there was a big trade show event recently that you attended. MERTEC, for those that don't know, it's the Multi-Unit Restaurant Technology Conference. I know we were actively involved from both an awards presentation, but I know you were there, visiting the booths and also the presenters. I would love to just see how the conference went as a whole and maybe some takeaways from it.
Sure. It was very interesting because it's clear how eager people are to get back together, to really hear from one another, learn what's working, learn what isn't, and really to get better entrenched in the whole digital world. Everybody is clearly aware that this isn't going anywhere. And while they had to do a lot of things to survive through the COVID period, there's a very clear understanding that it's time to take things to the next level. So two of the takeaways for me that were among the biggest, one is very personal. We gave the awards for the women innovators in the restaurant tech space. And it was really fabulous because I'm pleased to see that the restaurant industry, unlike a lot of other tech industries, is really not just giving lip service, but has some really wonderful leaders. We presented people that were at the far end of it, the Lifetime Achievement Awards, people like Mary Melvin and Regina Jerome from Uno, Mary's from Checkers and Rallies, who have been around this industry a long time. And it was very interesting talking to them about the changes and their own excitement of what's keeping them just really actively involved in the space, all the way down to our rising stars. Had a really couple of great conversations with Jessica Valenzuela at GoGo Guest, as well as Courtney Maxidon, who is passionate about data, just like we are, in the space as well. So those were some very exciting components, because I think they are bringing a lot of change. One of the great things about digital is that it takes a very different perspective, and engaging with women of all ages who are bringing new ideas and new thoughts to the space. But I mentioned Courtney a minute ago, and she's very interesting on the data side, as I said, but there's a lot of conversations that were going on around data, in particular AI and machine learning. We at Tillster have our own really wonderful product called Recommender, which is an AI-based machine learning recommendation engine that can be used throughout. But what I loved hearing about is the use of these tools even in areas that are not consumer facing. We think of them that way, but really looking at back office. So, how do you better recruit? How do you find the best kinds of recruits? How do you take and manage your inventory and what you need to ship in more of a just in time basis into your stores using machine learning for those kinds of pieces, which really also represent the integration of digital across the entire journey, not just the guest journey, but the journey of what happens in the back of house. And those are some of the things that I think we're going to see a lot of transition as those pieces begin to come together.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and I love hearing more because I've been even reading about the idea of a connected experience for both the guest as well as the brand. So it seems like those types of conversations are, already at the forefront, but really gaining more momentum in the industry as a whole.
The other thing that's interesting about that is, we all know and understand what's going on from a labor shortage. By having tools that are much more interesting to a younger audience, you're also creating a pathway for them to be engaged in a restaurant that they can find more exciting, that they can grow with, that they can both bring new ideas, but that they really look at this as a career opportunity in a very different way than just serving food.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I think that kind of is a great segue into the conversation we're going to have today. Is how to create a restaurant that is Netflix like, and we'll get into some of the specifics here. But to kind of cue it up, got a little prompt for you. So, restaurants should be more Netflix like. Yes, no, why?
Yes, a big yes. Some are the obvious reasons. Netflix is one of the biggest players in the digital space. They obviously understand their guest, but I want to go back a little bit in terms of even the early days. Netflix had to make a major transition. For those of you who may not remember, Netflix had DVDs that came to you that you had to exchange. It was a very different business model. And they did a really great pivot of being able to improve their digital understanding. The restaurant industry got thrown into that with the advent of COVID, and being able to see how that works, I think, is really there. The next piece of it is Netflix takes that data and uses it to a very great extent, but they do it in a way that doesn't wind up being creepy. You don't have a lot of things that come up and say, specifically, hey, we've been watching you. We know how much time you've been online or all the rest of it. But they do show a clear understanding of things that you would like. They give you a variety of ways to look and find and get discovery, which restaurants now have an opportunity to do digitally. It's not just you look at a big, huge menu. It is making it easier for you to find things that you really want. It also improves what Netflix should go out and buy because they know what their own consumers are really liking a lot of. It makes it easier to decide what to spend a lot of money on versus what maybe they want to give a competitor who has a different kind of clientele on it and make it available. Restaurants can be doing the same thing. How do we expand our menu? How do we change and alter? How do we take off things that really aren't so helpful to our guests and add new items that make it fun and exciting for them to be able to come back and stay really, really sticky? Because while Netflix users might also be on Amazon Prime or Peacock or any other service, you want to make sure that your core customer, your most important customer, is very sticky, that they check out Netflix first when they're looking for something to watch. And that's something restaurants need to do. You're never getting at 100% wallet share, but you want to make sure you're the first go to for your customers.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if we even look at over the last 10 years, I feel e-commerce brands in general have really paved the way to the conversations we're having today in terms of how do you really become even more consumer and data centric to, like you're saying, get them to think about your brand before they basically do anything, take
That's
any
right.
type of action. So you've mentioned a few of items that they've done really well in terms of digital and data. Are there any additional points that you would say that maybe stick out that restaurants could really learn from the lessons learned over the last 5 to 10 years from e-commerce brands?
Yeah, it's one of the things that if I do anything that kind of chides some of our customers, one of the things they tend to do with messaging is I describe it, it's kind of like crack. You send out a message and you get a response. Ooh, let's do more of that. But there's a point at which too much messaging really makes it, turns people off. And that's something that I think Netflix in particular has also done a really good job. What do they send an outbound message at? Are they checking in with the guest? When you come to the site, are they overwhelming you with too much, or are they putting it more in your control? I think that's a place that restaurants really have some learning to do in terms of when to put something out there, and also understanding when does it become white noise to the guest, and perhaps worst of all makes them stop coming in anymore.
Absolutely. And you're kind of describing, in the title itself of the episode, the secret sauce, right? And in our conversations that we've had, it's what we're going to introduce the idea of the concept of personalization here, a means to an end, right? I know you've mentioned that several times. So when we think about personalization, again, it's a concept that's been brought up more probably ever than it ever actually has in the industry. What do you think about, what does personalization mean to you? What do you think about, what comes to mind, and how do brands typically view personalization, and maybe how should they start to change, or just better understand the concept as a whole?
Yeah, I think there are some that are really obvious. I mean, one is greeting a guest with a name, but it really needs to go much beyond that. So, for example, everybody knows and understands you should have a reorder button. But do you have to make it as your likes? Or do you easily make it so that everything someone has already customized perhaps goes into a separate menu for them? So all of their favorites are dynamically there. That's a great opportunity to use that form of personalization on it. We put out a series of indices every year, and we put them out across a variety of things. One of the things we've also learned is some of it is age related. So if you do have an idea on the age, you can wind up understanding what might be a preference for a guest. But the same thing is true in reverse. Can you, in fact, glean, knowing that somebody who might be a Gen Z versus a boomer at the other end of the extreme, what you might be able to glean about them and know what you should be pushing forward in terms of what would be important for them? In the really beginnings of personalization, people were like, oh, I know that you always come for dinner. We're going to keep pushing breakfast. Well, if somebody isn't interested in breakfast, don't keep pushing breakfast. Make sure you give them fun and exciting things around dinner where they are, in fact, doing it. In fact, one of the things we've learned is that while you still, for many brands, want to give a discount, make sure, number one, that that discount is relevant so that it's helping you as a brand be able to bring an extra visit from that guest. They feel like they got something, you feel like you got something, but make it relevant for a time that might make them come, but come an extra time that they might not have counted on in the process. Another piece that's very true about thinking about how you're getting it is not just giving a discount, but creating really convenience features for your guest based on what you're seeing. If you see a guest is ordering from you in a cadence of every couple of weeks, maybe you want to offer some kind of a subscription program for them. Pre-built menus, pre-built components, they can easily, truly, with one check, be able to do it and control the time frame in which they are having that order, so they don't have to think about creating a meal on Tuesday nights. It's automatically there. They can easily change it. And you're showing that you understand what's important to that guest.
I absolutely love, and I'm going to follow this up with, part of the reason we're talking about this today too is there was a report that came out from McKinsey in Q4 of last year, which really, I know you shared with me, and it really stuck out, and it's been driving a lot of the conversations we've been having with customers. It's the expectation now, right? It's no longer again, it's a necessity. It's not any, they have to have it, right? And I'm gonna just introduce a few stats here and let me know if any of these shock you. It certainly didn't shock me, but of those polled in that report, 71% of the consumers expect a form of personalization when they interact with your brand. 75, this was the big one to me, 75% get
Yeah.
frustrated with your brand if they do not get it. And the last one here, which I think resonates with everything you just said, is 75% of those posts, in terms of the factors within personalization that are most important to them, is make it easy for me to navigate in store and online.
That's right.
Right. So
Absolutely. No,
it's not a
all of
shock to
that's
any of it, right?
not a shock at all. In fact, one of the things that's very true, I mentioned before about who your competition is. Yes, your competition is still the restaurant down the street, but your competition now and how your guest views you is, in fact, Netflix or Amazon or all of these digital experiences. And they fully understand who you are when you come to the site. Restaurants have a little bit more complexity. Netflix doesn't have a location you go to, but many other multi-channel retailers do. The fact that you're taking your size together, if you're a clothing store, whether you're online or you come to the store, that your personal shopper or somebody who's looking for you can pull something. Same thing has to be true for the restaurant. Make it easy for me to be able to sit down and not have to scroll through the menu, but use things that have already been customized for me in a store setting. So being able to order at a table. If I'm the best guest that you have, one of your top people, and I have the app on my phone, you might be a fast casual restaurant where most people stand in line. Make it so that your guests can go right to a table, get a greater advantage of the time that they have for lunch, be able to instantly order and take advantage of that as well. So even if you message them or put in that there might be a new item coming, you're testing it out. It's kind of a secret. You're giving that best guest an opportunity to try something before anybody else and give feedback. Those things don't cost you. In fact, they actually help you because your guest feels that you are better engaging with them, that they're important to you, and they want to be important. They want to continue to be important. So those pieces are there. It's one of the reasons that we equip all of our applications today with a CDP, which is a customer data platform. And that's what allows us to be able to take all of the data across all of the channels and dial it up to create different segments, to be able to ensure that we're taking what that guest does. And it's really changed the dynamic very much in a restaurant world to be able to have that cross component in there. In fact, even subtle things, when you think about it, if I'm a restaurant that sells burgers and sells chicken and sells salads, you, Jacob, might always want a salad, or better yet, I'm guessing you might always want a burger.
Absolutely.
I might always want a salad. And the picture that I show when I come to the site for you might show a burger. And for me, might show a salad, something that looks appetizing and reminds me how much I love this brand. It's, again, a very subtle way to be very personal to that guest, to trigger that reminder and say, I don't want to go anywhere else. Yeah, I'm going to order on this site because this restaurant gets me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I want to call out to what do you think? So if I'm a brand, right, and I'm hearing about all these great things that you're telling me, right, what, at the risk of maybe this question is a little too out there, but what are maybe some of the common roadblocks that will get in the way from being able to create a more personalized brand experience for my guests and like you said, and for my back of house and in-store staff? Everything from like tech to ordering, like what do you find with conversations with customers that they're struggling with?
I think it's a few things. The first is people think it's complex. It doesn't have to be complex. Start simple. Start being able to do some of the things I called out earlier of how you do an instant reorder or how you address your guest when they come into the restaurant. If you have a loyalty program, you know who they are. You may not want to call them out by name, but you might want to say something that shows it's pulled up. Hey, Jacob, I notice you always order iced tea. Would you like that on your order right away? And it gives an awareness in a very easy way. So they think it's hard. It doesn't need to be hard. The second is think about what makes your restaurant special. You don't have to do what everybody else does. Do what they think, what your guests think is important about where you are. And I think that's one of the things that we work very hard at is we have an array of choices for a guest. It's not, truly one size fits all, but how you start that process and how you talk to them can be a little bit different. And we enable the fact that the voice is different in terms of how it communicates, or how even a guest orders in terms of the kinds of things that are important to them. I think that's another component that people think or forget about having to do in a really accurate way. And kind of the third one is make sure that your tools are properly talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
We have situations where we have tools that we're connecting to our platform. We have other ones where we really represent the full gamut, and make sure that it's easy, that you're getting the proper data out that allows you to continue to draw on continuous improvement. Because that's one of the best things about data and
Mm-hmm.
about digital, is that you can see what's happening in real time or near real time and be able to draw on continuous improvement. So while you may initially get a hockey stick in terms of the introduction of certain digital pieces,
Right.
you're still continuing to move up that curve and gain new customers and retain them. In fact, one of the other areas that we see that this is a real driving force around, restaurants tend to have way too many one and done people,
Mm-hmm.
meaning I came in for an offer, I came in because, you sent me an email, but they tend to go to the next bright, shiny object.
Mm.
Make sure you're tracking what's happening. Make sure before a guest drops off and doesn't come back, you're reaching back out to them to remind them. That's something that's an imperative. Equally, it's an imperative to those people that are your best guests. Don't forget about them. Make sure that they account for a very large amount of your revenue. Make sure they feel the love.
Absolutely, absolutely, and you know, again, we really want to hit home on the role of data, right? And so it's one of the, I know we just recently came out with our delivery index on the preferred way of uh, consumers that want to experience delivery, right? So I think what you're also talking about is really, it's embracing and really changing the approach to how do you leverage data, but also understanding how your consumers buy and how they want to interact with your brand, right? Because like you're saying, if you're able to capture those and making sure your tech and loyalty and online ordering and devices, everything is connected, you're going to be able to extract that and pivot over time more
Mm-hmm.
efficiently, more effectively than you probably ever have, or maybe ever thought about, to again introduce new concepts, new, even understanding what type of menu items that they prefer, right? So, no, I think this is all very well said.
And also, I'm going to go back to the McKinsey report too, which is tied
Sure.
to this. McKinsey pointed out that among things like consumer packaged goods and other places, there was a 40% 40% more revenue tied to personalization. And I absolutely, depends on the use case, we absolutely see that. So whether it's a recommendation engine that's tied to who you are, but also the idea of just making it easier, of getting to the finish line, of already having your credit card in place, being able to find the menu items that are relevant to you, that continues to elevate how much money a guest is actually spending. So that personalization, while it does have, there are some costs to enabling it, it has
Mhm.
a dramatic impact in the revenue hit that you're being able to, revenue gain that you're able to see.
Absolutely. And are there specific areas that maybe um, that customers are coming to you and you're having conversations with them that they can start to better optimize and introduce more personalization concepts? Like, where, I guess what I'm asking is, like, what can they do to get started to have a more personalized brand and really start to excel in this space, to again differentiate not only from their competitors, but like you were mentioning before, other e-commerce brands that have kind of pushed this initiative, and the spillover effect has taken place in other industries?
So one of the things that's important is give an appearance of also creating a dialogue with the guest. So making it easy for the guest to understand what the right answer is. One of the biggest reasons people bail in a digital application is because it's like, what do I do next? So if you're seeing things that are very consistent, that's very helpful of being able to do it. And that's why creating an experience that's reflective of what they do in their restaurant is so important. So if you're a restaurant where somebody always picks A, B, and C, they pick a main dish or how they're customizing, or maybe they're coming there for something that's really special, like a special kind of milkshake. You
Mhm.
might want to move that up because people are already thinking about that and then adding on their meal. So it's about the clear understanding of what makes your brand special, and then communicating the digital components that allow you to create that. The last thing I want to mention is we're all in the hospitality business. So don't forget to infuse that personality back to
Mhm.
make that guest feel the warm and fuzzies, even when digital is being used, even in a personalized way in a restaurant setting. Make sure that you're using taking the opportunity to have that guest feel that the order's important. And that has to do with words. It has to do with how you call out your CTAs. It's why we think it's important that restaurants should have the ability to have some small, sometimes not so subtle changes from standard templates.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it all just comes back like you're only going to you're only enabling your brand to learn more efficiently and effectively about what your guests really want. And like you've been preaching, it's if they don't want it, don't give it to them. But if they want something of, that they continue to come back to your brand for time and time again, feed them more and learn and optimize over time. So,
Exactly. And everybody's different. I mean, we have a brand, for example, that wants to allow their guests to select which store. They're very
mm,
dense. And so while there is the closest possible store, they also want to be able to make it easy for somebody to pick a different one. Maybe there's a reason why. Maybe it's on their way home uh, from where they are, as opposed to anything else if it's not for delivery, but for pickup. And in fact, speaking of delivery, maybe you want to only show stores that are open late at night because it's late night. So you still want to showcase that you have something close, but be able to do that. Being able to allow those, normally I wouldn't say pick your own delivery store is
mhm.
vital, but it is for this particular brand. So that goes back to this issue again of understand the expectation from your guests.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think we've hit on this pretty well today. Is there any other takeaways or final thoughts you want to share?
Just the fact that this is really a moving target. And you don't want to do it all at once because that's going to be a little bit disruptive to your guest.
Hmm.
But you have to look to create a roadmap. How do you take your wins, test into things, and continue to improve them? And that's really the beauty of digital. And there's the ability to take that information and even put it into a live customer experience in the restaurant as well. So these things really are going back and forth in building an ecosystem that works for your guest.
Fantastic and well said. Well, we want to thank everyone for watching and listening, however you're consuming today's episode. And thank you, Hope, for coming on and
My pleasure.
speaking to everyone. And just so everyone is aware, Hope will be speaking at the Restaurant Leadership Conference in April at the JW Marriott Phoenix Desert Resort and Spa, where she will be touching on this as well as other findings from our consumer insights report, which will also be coming out as supporting content heading into next month. So we have a lot to get prepped for and a lot to
That's
be
right.
excited about. So if you guys are wanting to learn more or have questions, please comment wherever you're consuming this. We'll make sure to get back to you on that. And also check out our website, www.tillster.com, for more resources as well. And we will see everyone next time on Digital Dish.